Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing on Tuesday evening. Joining us from New York City, where I think he's got big plans for the rest of this week. I don't remember where he's going, but that's always what I always say. Tim Bontemps.
Going to see Wolves Knicks on Wednesday, when I think Anthony Edwards has a good chance of making his return from his hamstring injury. And more importantly, I'm glad that we've gotten the podcast started, because I wish people could have seen our guy, MacMahon, trying desperately to get his equipment to work in Los Angeles on remote, trying to cover games, traveling around the country, trying to get on the podcast. He desperately needed the IT department. The IT department is far away, and it was a struggle. But we made it.
Much respect. Tim MacMahon was in Houston last night, saw the Mavericks go down to the Houston Rockets on it was Tuesday night or Monday night. And then Tuesday, after this podcast, he's going to go see the Clippers play. And then tomorrow, a big game, a surprisingly big game, and it's on ESPN, between the number 2 and number 3 teams in the Western Conference when the Spurs visit the Lakers. It's MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Listen, you know my policy. I do not really operate well with those single-digit AM flights. Not only that, but with this whole TSA situation, I was warned the Houston airports are a mess. I ended up getting through security in 2 minutes. But I arrived with plenty of time to spare. So the 6 a.m. wake-up call and MacMahon ended up leaving a microphone in Houston. I'm a mess. Let's podcast.
All right. Well, you'll be back in Houston later this year. You can get it at a later time, and we'll limp through.
We'll make it work.
Podcast.
We'll make it work.
Well, I want to start right there in LA tomorrow night. We're obviously not going to know how tonight's games,
tonight for
Wednesday night. That's true. Wednesday night. The Lakers are coming off a couple of pretty good wins, including going up to Portland on the second night of a back-to-back. No Luka. He was protecting that leg injury. No Austin Reeves, who was dealing with his groin injury that just popped up. No LeBron, of course. They had some other guys who were with them.
No problem. Because they had DeAndre Ayton, buddy, who's getting $25 million from the Portland Trail Blazers and put up 29 and 10 to beat the Blazers on the second night of a back-to-back with all those 3 guys out. That is a brutal loss for Portland, a team that has had a decent start. And it is an awesome win for the Lakers, who have had a fantastic first couple of weeks of the season with LeBron not playing at all and with Luka missing several games. Been remarkable, frankly.
Wow. Bontemps wearing the Lakers girl uniform.
Hey, when I praise them when they're good. They've had a great couple of weeks.
Was it Saturday and Monday or Sunday and Monday? Anyway, in those 2 games,
Sunday and Monday, back to back.
The Lakers had 6 different players score at least 25 points.
Nick Smith Jr. on a 2-way deal.
So including a 2-way guy, Nick Smith Jr. By the way, that's never happened before in NBA history.
That's interesting.
In 2 games,
no kidding,
6 different players.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. 6 different guys in 2 games is pretty hard. That is
25. That's a lot of points.
No, it's a lot,
even by today's standards.
No, for sure, that's a lot.
And I think I would almost say what's been remarkable for the Lakers, and we're still in small sample size theater here. The Lakers have only played 8 games, although I think they've played the most games in the league. They're 7th in the league in offense, with Luka having missed 4 games and LeBron not playing at all. And they are now 3-1 without Luka. They're also 4-0 on the road, and this brings up sort of the George Karl standings that, that I find are useful. I think maybe George Karl's took them from
the Doug Moe standings is what they are. Yes.
Right. So especially earlier in the season, it's when team schedules are,
you might want to explain the Doug Moe standings.
Yes. So you take the number of road wins and you subtract the number of home losses, and whatever that number is, ideally, the more plus, the better.
If that's a positive number, you're going to be a good team, because it means you're a good road team and you're a good home team. That's the simple
and
way
the Lakers are already at +2, which is very good because they're 4-0 on the road. I'm not sure anybody else so the Thunder have 3 road wins. I'm not sure anybody else in the league has 3
Well,
road wins
and
over the
again,
76ers.
if you had said the Lakers were going to be 6-2 with no LeBron, with Luka missing, I think 4 or 5 games. I guess he's played 4 games so far, so missing half the games, and they're going to be 6-2. The Lakers would have been happy to be 4-4 if you told them that Luka was going to miss half the first 8 games and LeBron wasn't going to play. So yeah, like we've talked about it going back to the start of the summer. Every game you can gain in the West in particular is going to be massive. And like that game when Austin Reeves had 51, I think, in Sacramento to win that game against the Kings, DeAndre winning this game Monday night against the team that's still paying him 3/4 of his salary this year. Like those are the kind of games that could be the difference between the Lakers being 2nd and 3rd, 6th and 7th, 4th and 5th, whatever spot you are in the West. Like that could be the difference between home court advantage in the first round or making the play-in, avoiding the play-in or whatever. So like it's just massive. It's been a massive start, and it sets up, like you said, Brian, like obviously Victor in LA was always going to be a juicy game, but the Spurs, despite their dud against the Suns the other night and one of the stranger box scores of the season so far, there's going to be a lot of interest around this game, and it should be a lot of fun to see Luka and Wemby go head to head.
Yeah, so MacMahon, I also want to see Wembanyama is coming off of his worst game of the season. He had 9 points.
9 points on 4 of 14 shooting.
Yeah. And the Suns used an interesting defense in that game. Now, Victor has obviously been a good player for most of his life, and I'm sure he's seen a lot of defenses. I'm sure he's even seen similar to what the Suns did against him in the NBA. But the Suns did do something that I wouldn't be surprised to see teams, especially teams that are smaller. And the Lakers are a smaller team relative to they don't have great depth at center. What the Suns did in that game is, first off, they started out by guarding him. His initial defender was Royce O'Neal. Now, different guys defended him during the game, but his primary defender was Royce O'Neal, who's obviously a wing. And the other thing that they did was that if there was off-ball screening, like if they were trying to create a matchup for Victor, the Suns let the screen happen and they just switched, even if that meant Grayson Allen was on him or even if it was a guard. Like they didn't care. What they didn't want was Victor to make an easy catch. They wanted to fight Victor on the catch. They know that he's going to be taller than everybody, but they wanted to fight him for position. They didn't want him to get anything easy. And then they aggressively brought double teams, and specifically from his blind side so that he wouldn't necessarily know where they were coming from. This is not unheard of basketball. But the idea of not playing your absolute tallest player on Victor and just focusing on not letting him get to the spot he wants to get to had some short-term success. I'm sure JJ Redick and the Lakers watched that film, and whether or not they do it for the full time that the Suns prepared is yet to be seen. But I would suspect they take some things and have throw Victor some of those looks.
Yeah, and look, you nailed it as far as they didn't let him get to his spot. And we talked, especially after that game in Dallas when he just absolutely dominated. We talked about the strength that he's added, the core strength, the ability to create contact and not just finish through it, but create an advantage with that. What he was not able to do, though, was get deep post position. So he's catching it uncomfortably above the elbow or outside of the paint. And then there's an immediate double team, whereas he's not catching it with a deep seal where he can just turn around and go finish. So, that's something that's probably going to be years of work in the weight room down the road for him to just be able to say, okay, you want to put a little guy on me? I'm going to get exactly where I want to go. Just catch the ball and turn around and finish strong. And, if you're going to play him that way, you got to have somebody that you can hide a center on. Harrison Barnes has had a really good NBA career. Right now, he's a guy that you can hide a center on. And the third thing here is the guard play. Stephon Castle is reigning Rookie of the Year off to an amazing start. He's not necessarily a run the team type of point guard. He's a guy he's going to score a lot off of his athleticism, his ability to get out in transition, his ability to drive. But he's not going to be able to take advantage of a defense necessarily that's selling out to stop Victor Wembanyama in a way that you would hope a veteran point guard like De'Aaron Fox can. De'Aaron Fox is close. They haven't put an injury report out for tomorrow. I don't think, or for Wednesday night, I don't think we'll see him quite yet, but his return is that much more important, not only because I think you're going to see a lot of this style of defense on Wemby moving forward, but also Dylan Harper strained his calf and is going to be out for a little while. A guy who got off to a spectacular start as a number 2 overall pick. He's going to be out weeks. So suddenly we went from how can they play all these guards to, man, boy, they're pretty thin in the backcourt until Fox gets back.
Yeah, the Spurs are also a middle of the pack to lower middle of the pack 3-point shooting team thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Partially because Victor is attacking the paint more, which is good.
Well, but Victor's not going to help them a ton in that.
Right, but what you're worried about with the double teams is giving up swing threes. And
that's
the Spurs have not.
They don't have a lot of shooting.
They haven't demonstrated they can punish you that way. So,
and De'Aaron Fox isn't fixing that either.
Well,
and I mean in that game Sunday, I do think it's worth pointing out too that Victor got in early foul trouble, and I think that got him off his game a little bit. And again, I think we saw it in the game against the Pelicans. They did win the game, but Zion had some success going right at Victor down the stretch of the game. Victor fouled out of that game in overtime, and what became a win for the Spurs. And, look, he's definitely gotten bigger and stronger and more physical, and he's attacking the paint, which has been great to see. But, he's still a tall, thin guy, and getting up into his body and being physical with him in his lower half is going to be something that, like you said, it's not a revolutionary strategy, but it was an effective one. And I'm sure, especially with the way the Lakers team is built, they've got a decent number of wing-sized guys to throw at a guy like Victor. It's probably better than putting DeAndre Ayton on him instead of having one of those guys on him and DeAndre Ayton back towards the rim or Jackson Hayes back towards the rim. It's probably the most effective way to try to handle him. And also, to your point, I'm fine with a lot of these guys on the Spurs being left open for threes until they prove they're going to knock these shots down. They went 10 for 41 from 3 in that game. Let's see these guys hit shots.
The best shooter they have is Devin Vassell, and he was 0 of 6 from 3-point range in that game. And it wasn't just for Wemby. It's like 4 of 14, obviously, that's rough. Only 9 points, but he had 6 turnovers. So, and again, you could sense the frustration just growing and growing and growing to the point where he's trying to force things, and it's leading to turnovers. So, but I'll be honest with you, they still scored 118 points in that game. The shocking thing to me is they gave up 130 points to the Phoenix Suns. And listen,
I mean, that box score from soup to nuts is one of the weirdest box scores of the season. Like, if you'd have said the Spurs are going to lay an egg and lose to the Suns, okay, fine. The fact that the Suns of all teams, again, no disrespect to the Suns, I wouldn't have picked the Suns as the team to hold Victor to 9 points on 4 of 14 shooting with 6 turnovers, right? Like, that's not what you would expect. Nor would you necessarily expect Phoenix to put up a $130 against San Antonio and against Victor, who did still have 4 blocks in the game. So,
well, compliments to first-year coach Jordan Knott and his staff for putting the game plan together. He gets credit for that, and for the Suns executing it. And
they have hung around at some games too. Lost to Memphis at the buzzer the other day. They've been competitive.
Also, we've talked about what a stud Stephon Castle is defensively. Devin Booker lit him up. And, when there was some chit-chatting going on too, but Book had 27 and 13 and just completely controlled that game on the offensive end against an elite defensive player and an elite defensive team.
It came out today. I think Shams reported it, maybe some others, that Darius Garland is in line to make his season debut for the Cavs, hosting the 76ers on Wednesday night. Not sure who's going to play in that game for the 76ers. It is the second night of a back-to-back for them.
Feel pretty confident Joel Embiid will not be playing.
I think that's true. So we'll see what whether that's confirmed by the time this podcast comes out. But it's where it's headed that way. He had surgery on his big toe in the offseason for turf toe. The Cavs need him pretty badly. Not necessarily in this game, although the 76ers are at the top of the list. I don't know how tonight's game with the Bulls will play out.
By the way, the battle between the number one teams in the Eastern Conference, 5-1 v 5-1. Who would have guessed that 2 weeks into the season?
We all
Not
called
me.
that. Oh, I'm smarter than both of you.
Yeah.
I went to college as long as you two combined, so it makes sense. I'm
Certainly
smarter.
did. No argument about that.
So the numbers could obviously change a little bit by the way things go tonight. But as we do this podcast, a year ago, the Cavs were the number one offense in the league, number two offense all time. This year, they're 26th. Now, there's a reason in part for that because they haven't had Darius Garland. They haven't had Max Strus. Donovan Mitchell has missed a couple of games.
Jared Allen's been out.
Jared Allen's missed a couple of games. And Sam Merrill, who is a key player for them, has missed 3 or 4 games.
And they don't have Ty Jerome, who was a human microwave all last season for him.
Right. So certainly I'm not trying to say, oh my God, how did the bottom fall out? Having said that, the Cavs are offensively challenged. And one of the things that's going on, Donovan Mitchell he's got great numbers, but he is just hoisting 3-pointers. He has made 44% of them so far, and that is why the Cavs are above 500, quite frankly. He's rescued them in some second halves. They're 4-3. Evan Mobley's usage rate is the highest it's been in his career because they're running stuff through him because they don't have Darius Garland or Ty Jerome. Lonzo Ball has missed some games as well because he's not going to play the second half of back-to-backs, and he's limited on his overall minutes. So they've leaned on Evan Mobley to be a creator, and it's caused the offense to suffer a little bit. It's not that he's playing terribly, but last year, 43% of Evan Mobley's shots came in the restricted area. He averaged almost 3 dunks a game last year. Had like 170 or something, 180 or I think
somebody might have tipped you off to this. I think maybe the other day.
Oh,
well, anyway,
Bontemps wants full
now
credit.
Stealing my thunder. I had the chart I sent him ready to go. He's using the stats.
I had he is now just shooting, I think 23% of his shots in the restricted area. And Donovan Mitchell, his restricted area shots have dropped by half. He is just hoisting threes. So,
well, look, these stats are a couple days old, but the stats that Brian is referring to in part, we talked about the other day. And within 5 feet of the basket, I believe this is through Sunday night's action, Evan Mobley was shooting 27% of his shots from less than 5 feet and 33% of his shots from more than 25 feet. That is not a good balance.
Yeah.
I'm all for Evan Mobley shooting threes. We have talked a lot in the past about the importance of Evan Mobley becoming a 3-point shooter. I think taking threes is good, but Evan Mobley's taken, at this point, somewhere around 30% of his shots from 5 to 15 feet, 27% of his shots from 5 feet and in, and 33% of his shots from more than 25 feet. That distribution of his shooting can't be the case. He's very athletic. He could get up at the rim. As you said, Brian, he was getting a few dunks a game last year. Obviously, the Cavs are not the team they normally are. There's a lot of factors in this, but they need Evan Mobley to be a factor at the rim. We talked about Victor Wembanyama in the first segment and the way he has gotten to being the guy in the paint that we've wanted him to be. Evan Mobley's got to have the same sort of balance. Yes, it's good to get some threes up, but he's got to be a guy that's able to take the rim off for the Cavs. And, this year it's been a lot of middies and threes, and that's not what you want to see from him.
Well, but he's a piece of an offensive puzzle that's missing other major pieces. Darius Garland, obviously, about to come back. And so when Darius Garland's not around, they need him to create more. And then when Max Strus isn't around, it changes the spacing and the geometry of the court a whole lot. By the way, 192 dunks in 71 games last year. So almost 3 games, 7-7 this year. I can do that math. That is exactly 1 per game.
8 years of school will get you that math right there.
That's right. Yeah,
well,
he has
look,
less dunks this season than I had years in college.
Well, I also do think, too, that, I think if you are, one of the many denizens of Cavs Corner listens to the pod, including our esteemed leader, it is pretty concerning the number of injuries that already exist with a Cavs team that came into the season with a roster that you looked at and said had some injury questions, right? Like, I totally get swapping out essentially Ty Jerome for Lonzo Ball, but Lonzo Ball is a guy that you have to really gently get through the season to make sure he's ready for the playoffs. He's also not a guy that's really going to provide you the kind of offensive lift that Ty Jerome did throughout the season last year. We've talked about Strus being out. DeAndre Hunter's had issues with his knee. He's missed time. Dean Wade has been a guy who is a good player when he's available, but he's missed a lot of time. Yeah. Garland's coming off this toe injury. Let's see how he responds. Donovan Mitchell, again, already dealing with hamstring issues. That's something that's been an issue repeatedly down the stretch in seasons. It's not great that's happening in November. Obviously, the Cavs have won some games here. They're going to get healthy. They're going to be just fine. They had a nice win over the Hawks the other day. But, it's not great that we're a couple weeks in and we're talking about a MASH unit for these guys, and they've got to have Donovan saving them to win games in the first week of November.
Yeah, and I think that you give them grace because of the injuries. And look, they've got a kind of an interesting week this week where they have the Bulls on the weekend, and they have a Bulls Cavs game is now relevant. That's the team that's in first place. I mean, the entire East to a certain extent is a little bit of upside down, topsy turvy. We'll see how the Sixers emerge. This is a 2-game road trip to Chicago and Cleveland. Chicago is running hot. Cleveland is obviously one of the favorites. But Cleveland and New York are, and tonight Atlanta, as in Tuesday night, Atlanta and Orlando play. Also 2 teams that are underachieving a little bit. Those are teams that right now would be sort of below the midline when you have some other teams at the top that we didn't expect. So these is a little bit, unpredictable in the early going here. But we'll see how the Cavs do. They Garland is back. Sam Merrill is close. We'll see if he is able to play this week. And let's see how they do against Philly and Chicago, with more of their playmaking back. But
yeah, Jared McCain should be playing Tuesday night in Chicago.
That's right. Jared McCain
I assume he'll be able to play. He should be able to play in Cleveland Wednesday. I would guess the only guy barring injury that's going to miss time Wednesday is Joel Embiid.
Paul George.
Paul George isn't back yet, but I meant of guys who are playing Tuesday. I don't think anybody else should miss time. And if we're going to talk about the East really quick, I do want to shout out Detroit. They had a really nice win. We briefly mentioned it the other day in Mexico City against Dallas. Jalen Duren had a career high in that game. They come back on Monday. They win in Memphis. We'll talk about the Grizzlies later, but they're off to a good start. I think they're 5-2 so far, and JB Bickerstaff has those guys playing well. Cade Cunningham's completely bounced back, or come back from the way he played last year and carried it over and looks awesome. And in an Eastern Conference where there is a lot of uncertainty and there are a lot of teams trying to figure a lot of things out, Detroit has hit the ground running, and they've got a chance to put themselves in very good position early on. And I'm anxious to see how that continues to play out.
Jalen Duren's betting on himself, didn't get an extension done. Some people don't think there's that much value in that sort of kind of modern traditional rim running center. And by that, I mean a non-stretch center. But man, does he fit well with Cade Cunningham, and the chemistry between those guys is awesome. And I just love the power and the force that Duren plays with consistently. And then he's also got some finesse about him. He's, getting the ball in the short roll, he'll make good plays. I'm high on that dude.
Also on Wednesday night, we have a rather interesting game between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Houston Rockets. Rockets, by the way, MacMahon, I'm going to say, not only do they have the top offense in the league, but last year, I think they were 21st in the league in 3-point percentage. And so far, at least at the time that we're recording this, they're first. Which is not something that I thought I was going to see. You thought that Durant would lift them, but Durant's not even shooting that great from 3-point range. He's shooting lower than his career average. It's like kind of, Reed Shepherd certainly helping them. Alperen Şengün hitting shots.
Look, Tari's, again, this is like 2-week sample size, right?
Okay, but they were terrible last year.
Well, okay, but Tari Eason right now is shooting 56% from 3 on 4 attempts a game, right? So, let's just ease off on where the Rockets sit.
And KD was in the mid-40s, and then he had an off night against the Mavericks. But, listen, the Alpi Şengün thing is a fascinating deal. Whether he can maintain, I mean, he's not going to shoot it this well, but if he can be a legitimate 3-point threat, what we're seeing with the Rockets is Kevin Durant has come in and given that offense the boost that they anticipated, but that's not the only reason they're the number one offense in the league. We are seeing two ascending stars, potential superstars, in Alperen Şengün and Amin Thompson. And by the way, it's not too long ago we'd be talking to people around the league and they'd be like, I'm not sure the spacing is going to work with those two guys. I'm not sure those two guys can play together. Not only does the spacing work with those two guys, they have developed phenomenal chemistry. And it's a really interesting deal. Ime Udoka refers to it as unconventional. They don't have their point guard. Fred VanVleet is out with an ACL, unfortunately. And Amin is playing that position, bringing the ball up before the majority of the time. But in half court, they're really running everything through Alpi. And a lot of times, Amin Thompson, the point guard, will bring it up the floor and then head down to the dunker spot. And man, Alpi knows how to find them down there, and Amin knows how to finish. And I'm just telling you, those two guys in particular are soaring right now. I think they're, we'll see what the Rockets' record is. I think they both might have a chance to be an all-star this year in addition to KD.
Well, I think Şengün certainly does under the new rules with the international flavor to it. But I would say that while we're going to talk about Rockets Grizzlies, which is on Wednesday night, one of the more interesting games of the early season is the game Friday in San Antonio with the Rockets and the Spurs. And I want to see how this massive Rockets team handles Victor Wembanyama and how that matchup goes. I think that will be very interesting for a whole host of reasons after we saw, probably won't, I'm not certain we'll see a better game than the first game of the year between Houston and OKC. But Rockets are off to a great start. Şengün's been great, as you said, Tim, and that one on Friday night is going to be awfully fun.
Well, and I guarantee you this, Wemby will be up for that one. Not that Wemby's got motivational issues at any point, but there have been times when Şengün has given him the business. And Şengün, man, he's a tough cover. Hey, the biggest bucket of the game last night, Kevin Durant went and stood in the corner, spaced the floor, and Alpi Şengün went one-on-one and made a beautiful spin move in the lane before finishing. He's a top 5 center easy. I mean, I don't want to say he's going to be all NBA. I know that one of those spots has been designated for Ivica Zubac by a certain host of this podcast. but Şengün's playing at an elite level.
Tell Ivica that I said hello tonight when you're at the game.
Will do.
Well, the thing about the Rockets, they just grind it out offensively beyond just a 3-point shooting. They're number one in offensive rebounding.
Yeah, I mean, anytime they miss it, there's a 50% chance they're getting the miss, which doesn't hurt.
And they're number one in free throws.
Yeah. And they're rugged as hell. They are a relentless attacking team. And last year they couldn't shoot at all, but they did grab a ton of rebounds. That's why they were mediocre offensively last year. You had KD. These young guys keep improving. I will say the Rockets have slipped on the defensive end. And I think the challenge for the Rockets is, I'm not saying they'll be the number one offense this year, but maintain elite efficiency offensively, but get back to that rugged, dominant, nasty defensive identity on a consistent basis. And I think that's where you're really missing Fred VanVleet, the communicator, and just the pit bull. Obviously, you're missing Dillon Brooks. Those are the two guys who set the tone for him there. And do you trade Dillon Brooks as part of the KD deal 1,000 times out of 1,000? Yes, but I'm just saying you're missing it there. And where I think they really miss VanVleet on the offensive end is the turnovers, which directly affects the defense as well.
So Ja Morant was, I think the headline that we had on ESPN.com said "mum" following his suspension when he came back on Monday. Look, the Grizzlies are backing their head coach here. And, one of the things, obviously Tuomas Osalo got into it with Ja Morant after the game. And, if you're in that locker room, just put yourself in that locker room, right? It's a new coach. I know he's not new to the team, but he's in this job, and you get into a back and forth with the star player. And you're saying, how is this going to go? And so the Grizzlies sent a message that they're going to back their coach. And I know that in the modern era, everybody's like, okay, well, is the star player being traded in the next 10 minutes or in the next 20 minutes?
Right.
And we talked about that on the podcast earlier this week. But, Ja is not, at least publicly, reaching out much of a olive branch.
I would say Ja put forth more effort defensively in the second half against the Lakers than he did in extending an olive branch.
Yeah. So I guess to be continued. Is that what you would say? Assess this?
Look, Ja, we've talked a lot about superstar players have the ability to publicly crank up the temperature or turn it down. And the temperature's hot and Ja's like, cool, let it burn. He's going to do this little mopey thing with the media. And look, the other thing I will say with Ja, even if he wanted to turn the temperature down, even if he was making peace with the Asalo, Ja gets in this thing where either you're a cheerleader or you're the enemy. And it's not the media's job to be a cheerleader. He, like Chris Harrington with the Daily Memphian, asked him a very fair question along the lines of what did you think of your effort in the second half against the Lakers? That's not the exact question, but or do you have any regrets? I think something along those lines. And Ja said, "Oh, that's your home run question? Sounds like bait to me." It's essentially saying, Ja, do you want to take any accountability for what led to the confrontation? And Ja's answer in so many words is, no, I don't want to take any accountability. So as long as Ja Morant does not want to take any accountability, you've got issues. There's a fascinating clip, and I mentioned this last podcast. There's a fascinating clip going around. It's called the X's and O's Chat. It's a European-based basketball podcast, and Iasalo did like a long sit-down interview with them back in January. Well before he was on the Grizzlies staff, but well before he was the head coach. Remember, that was 9 games left of the regular season. And he talks about he came around to this philosophy of, hey, if a player's being a beep hole, and he didn't beep it, then he's come around to saying, hey, we're going to address that in front of the entire team. It's hurting everybody there. Everybody sees it. Let's address this head on. And he said, as part of this thing, he said, you're hurting all of us. You're not responsible to me. I'm just telling you that this is how the other guys feel about you. So you can go ahead and be a beep hole, okay? But everybody here knows it. If you're fine and you can live with it, then I can live with it as long as you bring the result. But if you don't bring the result, then your ass is cut. Now, that last line might work in the European leagues he was coaching in. That ain't the way the NBA works with the face of the franchise on a maximum contract. But I think it tells you about the way he approaches, dude, you're quiet quitting for the world to see. We're going to talk about this for the whole team to hear.
Well, and until we get some sort of firm resolution, either from, the temperature, as you said, MacMahon, going down and Ja acting normally and not pouting, which I would say his behavior after the game Monday was more pouting, then this is going to remain a story. And again, not to completely rehash our conversation from the other day, but Ja Morant might be a superstar in terms of shoe sales and in terms of public perception. He's not a superstar on the court anymore. And so, again, the idea of even deciding to trade Ja Morant and what that would look like, it is not going to be the Desmond Bane return if they do decide to do it, which is a whole nother level of complication to this situation and why it's probably going to remain something that is hovering in the background unless there's a change in status all the way until the trade deadline in February.
Yeah, I will say the quote that sort of got the most attention, even though it was pretty short, he was asked if he has his usual joy of playing basketball, which is evident that it's not the case because of his body language and everything. But he said no. And, the thing that I was thinking about is I don't think he's had the Ja Morant joy of playing basketball since he was at that club outside Denver 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because if you look at since then, if you want to say we're fine in the West,
I mean, you could
now,
say I was going to say, that's to me the moment from that quote until now. What has happened in Memphis? There's been hardly any good the whole time.
I mean, I don't have to go over the whole thing.
No, you don't need to.
Suspensions.
And and even like just in terms of, because Ja, I mean, he used to just be as electric as any player in the league in terms of obviously the game, but the personality. And that's, Memphis fell in love with those two things.
That's why Nike gave him the signature
Absolutely.
shoe, which
but even
came out today, right?
No, there's an Air Force One that came out today. It's the Let Ja Be Ja Air Force Ones, which I thought was interesting timing.
Was that a real thing, or is that just a joke?
No, it was a real thing. I've sent it
but
to
like
you.
That wasn't like.
No, it's not. They didn't.
That wasn't
make the shoes.
that was planned for like months, right? Like it didn't. It's just. Let Ja be like that's not like a reaction.
No, it's not I assume no. I don't think they're releasing a Air Force One edition just specifically because of this. No, I think it's,
okay. I'm not a sneakerhead, so I
think it's a complete coincidence. But like last year, remember when he came through Dallas, and I was asking, like, he had a breakaway and he did like a little, as he called it, like a little rim grazer. And then he was basically like, man, I don't even want to dunk anymore. There's a lot of things.
That lasted for like 3 days, but
but look at his dunk numbers, and look at it. And on a related note, look at his finishing in the rim numbers. And for that, what? That's not about a system. That's about he kept getting hurt with these, high flying acrobatics in traffic, and he felt like he wasn't getting called. So like, Ja's got a lot of things that in his mind are robbing him of joy. It's been, I mean, specifically the refs. It's been, sanctions from the league. It's been friction with coaching in terms of system, or now I guess it's this substitution pattern that he's worked up about. The media is out to get him in his mind a lot of times. Like it's just like, dude, the just pure bliss that he used to have on a basketball court is gone. And it's not like he's not fun to it's not like, it used to be so much fun to watch him. It's not fun anymore.
Feels like the end of Derrick Rose in Chicago. That's what it feels like in many different ways.
I think we should point out, because we don't talk about the Jazz that much, and we've got a lot of fans in Utah.
We sure do.
The Jazz won in Boston a couple of days ago
with no Walker Kessler.
The sheriff.
I still think out with a shoulder issue.
A top nickname.
I like.
Yeah, very good nickname.
Good nickname.
I will say this: you watch the Jazz; they look like no other team in the NBA. I'll say that. They're 3-4.
The Wasatch front line.
By the way, I turn on the Celtics Jazz game in the fourth quarter on Monday night while I'm sitting at the Garden watching Wizards Knicks, and what do I see? I see Kevin Love flying down the lane, catching a pass for a reverse layup. I did a quadruple take. I was like,
flying.
Kevin Love.
You sure you want to?
He was moving. He was moving quick. I caught it on the Love on the rip and laid it in.
He's got when they wear the mountain uniforms, he's got like the snow-capped peaks in the hair that match. I mean, I'm telling you, I think he's a good fit there.
Let me tell you what Lauri Markkanen's stats are so far.
He's hooping. Okay, hey, post EuroLeague, post Eurobasket, Lauri Markkanen's a different beast. Go on.
Yeah. He's averaging 31 points a game on 48% shooting. He's making 4 threes a game on 37% shooting, averaging 7 rebounds and 2 assists a game.
Oh,
and
again,
Kyshawn George.
If Lauri keeps playing like that between now and the trade deadline, it's going to be interesting to see what Utah ultimately decides to do, I think. Yeah.
People were all excited about their draft pick, Ace Bailey, who is not doing much so far. He's shooting under 30% and averaging 4 points. But let me talk about Kyshawn George out of Baylor. Is this the third year leap that we sometimes see and don't always expect? Kyshawn George is one of the early stories of the NBA. He's averaging 23 points, averaging 8 assists, and he's only 22 years old. This was a guy who, when he came out, really had a really good summer league. And it was like, oh man, could this guy have been a sleeper in the draft? And then, as Utah's been mired in the muck the last couple of years.
Well, and this is the interesting thing. He's shooting terribly from three. It's almost 6 attempts a game, and he's shooting 27%. The reason his numbers look so good is he's shooting almost 10 free throws a game and hitting 91% of them. Like, that is awfully interesting. And if he could continue to be that good and that able to get to the rim and finish and get to the line, like, the shooting being questionable isn't going to matter as much if he's going to be a consistent weapon in terms of drawing fouls and getting to the line. That is an eye-popping number, 9.6 free throw attempts per game. That is something I'm going to be monitoring, because if that continues, like, that's something that's really sustainable and can be the foundation of something pretty interesting.
Well, and I don't know the official hashtag muscle watch on him in terms of the weight, but like, his arms are clearly significantly bigger, more defined. He came into the league as a slight kid. Like, I don't know if he could grow a mustache when he came in the league. And he's put in a lot of work. And and look, he's also been coached hard by Will Hardy. And one of Will's things is no free minutes, even when, last year was a nightmare from a player development standpoint, because clearly they weren't trying to win. But last year, Isaiah Collier took the starting job from Kyshawn George for a while. And that was Will trying to basically say, dude, you're not getting handed anything in this league. You're not getting handed anything by this franchise. And Kyshawn has responded to that coaching. And I talked to Will during the preseason, and he said his exact quote was, "Man, I am so proud of that dude. Just the way that he responded to a rough year last year, his approach during the summer, and that's obviously carried over." He said he'd grown up a lot, and that's carried over clearly in the start of the season.
And by the way, to follow up on this free throw thing, here are the top 10 guys in free throws attempted per game going into Tuesday night. Zion Williamson, Giannis, Windows favorite Austin Reeves, Paolo Banchero, Shea, Kyshawn George, Tyrese Maxey, Kevin Durant, Pascal Siakam, Devin Booker, and Jimmy Butler's 11th. Like,
wow.
That is awfully good company to be in. And if you're getting to the line 8, 9, 10 times a game, like, that's a real game changer deal. So I'm awfully curious to see that. And part of the reason we were doing this was to talk about the Celtics, and the free throw thing is interesting with them. Boston has never been a team that's been particularly good at getting to the foul line. They are dead last in the league, 18.1 free throw attempts per game. There's only one other team, the Clippers, that's under 20. And then the Wizards are at almost 21.
Well, it's where you feel no Jason Tatum there.
It was always Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and really that's it in terms of getting to the line.
Yeah.
You take Jason Tatum away, and again, it's very hard to have consistent offense, even if you have a bunch of shooters from three, if you're just not getting consistent.
By the way,
trips to the line.
While we're talking about Kyshawn George and having a surprising year and the little known teams before we go to break here, I'd like to talk about Kyshawn George from the Wizards.
Kyshawn.
And
Kyshawn George.
When you say little known, I mean, you got to mix in a mispronunciation.
I actually knew that. That was my own. That was just a dumb thing.
I got corrected on it by our guy, Jim LeBombard, when I saw him yesterday after listening to us on the pod. So I just wanted to make sure we got it right.
I saw him score 34 in Dallas. He lit the Mavs up in the second game of the year.
He is having a impactful second season. There's not much super exciting happening in Washington.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Alex Sarr is coming along very, very nicely.
I was going to say, I saw the Wizards Monday night, and yes, they had a rough third quarter, and they end up losing by 15-ish to the Knicks. But Kyshawn George has had a really nice year. Alex Sarr's rim protection numbers are really interesting. He started to get better. Like, they're young guys. Yes, their young guys have taken some real steps forward. They've been respectable in these games. Like, they're playing a lot of young guys. I think Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum have been, very good veteran additions. I saw CJ for a while before the game. it feels much different than it did last year, where early in the year they were just getting absolutely slaughtered on a nightly basis. Like this feels a lot more like progress to me. And these young guys are, like you said, Kyshawn and Alex are at the top of the list in terms of taking real steps forward.
Kyshawn George is not related to Keontae George. Kyshawn George is actually Swiss, but definitely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, definitely he should have never mind.
He's got one of the best throws in modern NBA history. Like
he's got a great head of hair.
Yeah, since the ABA, he's got one of the best throws that we've seen.
He should have an On should have a basketball shoe, and he should
the On Clouds
be the Swiss.
Yeah, On Cloud could, it's a perfect fit for basketball for a high flyer. Yeah. He's more of a shooter, but hey,
come on, let's get it done. We let Kyshawn be Kyshawn. I just did
sneakerhead Wendy with all kinds of ideas.
That's right.
Fire or not fire, that would be a fire shoe.
I know that it's been nothing but good news for the New Orleans Pelicans out of the gate. Now they are playing the Charlotte Hornets on Tuesday night at home without LaMelo Ball. So maybe they get their first win. You'll know by the time you hear this podcast. However, Zion Williamson,
they better get their first win against the Charlotte Hornets Tuesday night.
However, Zion has another hamstring injury. He has been pretty much had his season totally derailed by hamstring injury 2 years ago. And he'll be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days. When it comes to Zion's hamstring, like I respect that they announced 7 to 10 days. Nobody has any clue here.
7 to 10 days, 7 to 10 months, who knows?
And by the way, just really quick, here's their schedule in November. At Dallas on Wednesday, so the second night of a back-to-back. At the Spurs, at the Suns, Portland, Lakers, Warriors, Thunder, Denver, at Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, Memphis, Golden State, Lakers.
Yeah, when you're not one of the 10 best teams in the West, it's going to always be brutal.
I'm just saying that's even the East teams they're playing are all over 500.
They're not one of the 14 best teams in the West.
Yeah, well, the only uplifting part of the Atlanta Hawks' shaky start to the season is the out-of-town scoreboard as they look over there.
It's an extremely uplifting part, I can tell you that.
Struggling.
Extremely uplifting.
Let's look up there and see what the Pelicans score.
Oh, look, the Pelicans are down by 40,000 points in the second quarter. Yes.
Oh, my God. Yes, to your point, Bontemps, they are in the stretch of 6 out of 7 on the road, all of them Western Conference games.
They got to get this game against Charlotte.
Yeah.
They got to get it.
Yeah, all the road games are Western Conference games. So the one home game is Charlotte game. So not great news on Zion. All right. Thank you very much to Mr. MacMahon. Thank you very much to Mr. Bontemps. Thank you very much to Jackson, our producer. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. We'll be back at the end of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Windhorst. And adios, amigos.